Hi, sweetheart. There's a line in The Guiltless World in the text, chapter 13, that I've highlighted and underscored and read and reread, and it's, God loves you. Could I then lack faith in you and love him perfectly? I'm going to read that again. God loves you. Could I then lack faith in you and love him perfectly? Alone we are lowly, but together we shine, with brightness so intense that none of us alone can even think of it. Before the glorious radiance of the kingdom, guilt melts away and, transformed into kindness, will never more be what it was. Every reaction you experience will be so purified that it is fitting as a hymn of praise unto your Father. See only in praise of him in what he has created, for he will never cease his praise of you. United in this praise, we stand before the gates of heaven, where we will surely enter in our sinlessness. I've talked about this before, but sin is an archery term that means missing the mark. So you try and hit the bullseye, you miss. The archery term for that is sin. What is the mark? According to A Course in Miracles, it's to know your true nature, to be your true authentic self, to recognize your own indomitable nature and that you are beloved, perfect, whole, and complete. So anytime we fall short of that, we are sinning, which is okay. We missed the mark. Fortunately, we have an endless quiver of arrows to draw from and try again. I did a little experiment where for a few days I consciously chose to look at everything I did as perfect, whole, and complete. And at first I was a little worried, like, oh, but I need to be improving, and is that going to make me narcissistic, or is that going to put me into ego? But I just decided to do it as an experiment because A Course in Miracles says I am perfect, whole, and complete. So are you. It was really, really interesting what happened. Because what I found out was that a lot of my misbehavior was caused by a reaction to what I'd done wrong, feeling ashamed and guilty. And then my reaction to that shame and guilt was exacerbating the situation. And what happened, this is going to sound really paradoxical, but on a practical level, what happened when I started looking at everything I did as perfect, whole, and complete, because it came from me and I'm perfect, whole, and complete. I'm going to pause here and say I would not recommend this to someone who is clearly delusional and narcissistic and unloving. But I would recommend this to someone who is doing A Course in Miracles, really trying to be a good person, really trying to be honest with themselves, really committed to doing this work. I would recommend it to them as just a thought experiment. Where, let's say you say something harsh to someone. Well, during this experiment, instead of going to self-condemnation, like, oh, I said that really harsh, I'm a bad person, and why did I do that? I feel so guilty, and I'm not living these principles, and da, da, da. Instead of doing that, I literally would say, well, I'm perfect, whole, and complete. So that person, maybe they needed to hear a harsh word in that moment. I know that sounds terrible, just bear with me. But what would happen is that my nervous system would relax, I'd immediately forgive myself, and then I'd be in a state of mind to make amends or repair, if that was what was called for. Because I wasn't doing the negative feedback loop. It's so fascinating. It's so fascinating. It really kind of blew my mind. And, you know, if I messed up something, like I'm writing in my journal and I wrote the wrong word and had to cross it out. And I have a little bit of perfectionism and OCD where it really bothers me. I'm like, my beautiful journal has marks in it. Oh no. I would say, well, I'm perfect, whole, and complete, so my journal needed a word scratched out there. It's perfect. And then I would just let it go and move on. Play around with that today. If you mess up, stop and remind yourself that you're perfect, whole, and complete, and all is in order. I'm not saying that objectively We don't have aspirations to be more kind, to be more loving, to be more gracious. I do have those aspirations. However, the interesting thing is, as I claimed my perfection, my wholeness, and my completeness, in these moments where I was going into self-condemnation, it actually soothed my nervous system and allowed me to show up with more love and more grace. And it made what I was claiming to be true more true. And in some ways, my ego is saying, well, that's putting the horse before the cart. You've got to be perfect before you start condemning yourself. But what I saw during the experiment is I've got to stop condemning myself in order to be perfect. I mean, it's worth a try. I can only tell you what I experienced, and it was pretty incredible. So I invite you to do that same experiment if you'd like. To not judge yourself and assume that you are perfect, whole, and complete, and everything you do is perfect, whole, and complete. And of course, trust your intuition, listen to your inner guide. This is not permission to be abusive or unkind to others. What this is permission for you to stop beating yourself up. And you'll see that as you stop beating yourself up, you will naturally be more kind and empathic and loving. At least that's what I found. I'd love to hear how the experiment goes for you. Please comment below if you have any breakthroughs or thoughts or questions about this experiment. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. Mwah.